You say you don't want money. Don't care about the money, correct? Relax. I'm not trying to bribe you, just understand you. Now, I don't have money. I don't own anything, technically. Okay. Silence is okay. Silence has been our friend all these years, until it wasn't. I conclude you want some satisfaction from me. Well, what form would you like that to take, if not financial? Moral? I mean, that authority has been taken away from me, as you see. No collar, no frock. Now, that's a word the newspapers love. Defrocked. Needless to say, there's no such thing. No such thing in canon law. Dismissal from the clerical state is what it's called. Which hasn't actually happened. It may not. See, this is a sort of a halfway house for priests who are betwixt and between. So how it works out in my case depends on, well, you are either misremembering or flat out misstating the year in question. So you say you were 15. I'm quite certain you were 16. See, the church draws a line at that number. You can look it up. Canon law is online now, like Facebook. 16 is the difference between one kind of punishment, one chamber of hell, and a worse one. Now, I didn't have to look it up. I was very aware of those prohibitions. At some level, I knew I'd have to be. Another thing reporters like to say is, a boy half his age, which was never true. I was, 18 months ordained, and, oh yes, I've done the math. You were 3/5 my age. You think I'm splitting hairs, but, well, look at us now. We're almost the same age. Almost. Time seems so vast when you're young, doesn't it? Monday, Tuesday. The weekend seems so far away. Will the end of the school year ever come? Anything could happen. See, I lost that anything could happen feeling on my 55th birthday. It wasn't a flash of wisdom, just a sudden clarity that many things I thought could happen never will. It was right around when I heard from you for the first time after so many years. I wanted to respond, I did. But I was muzzled, advised not to. The church, in her great generosity, gives alms to the poor, missionaries to the heathen, and doubtful counsel to everyone else. How old, if I may ask, is your spouse, do you call him? One of the TV news reports said husband. Lord, even when we were young and thought anything could happen, did you ever imagine that? I mean, they didn't mention your name, of course, or his. He was lit from behind, a shadow for a mask. You couldn't make out his face. I mean, they may have disguised his voice. Still, it's not privacy, is it? That's gone. Are you happy with him? Right? None of my business. It's so new. I mean, one can't help but being curious. I mean, granted, it's not marriage in the eyes of the church, but then Well, the eyes of the church, I don't have to tell you, are chronically askew. Marry a lady Buddhist in your backyard, and Mother Church does not recognize it. But have an affair with the woman next door, and suddenly your marriage is real enough to call you adulterer. You understand me? Adultery doesn't exist outside of marriage. Adultery requires one person married and one person they're not married to. So you and your Buddhist wife are married enough to commit adultery, but stay faithful to her, and it's just garden variety fornication, not holy matrimony. I've had letters, phone calls, worse yet, unlucky encounters at the dog park. People actually accusing me of adultery. Well, it's hardly the time to school them. I avert my eyes and shrink away, a caricature of a criminal. But adultery is something you and I were never guilty of. I'm not married, not even to God, who is also a man, as the Bible tells it, or two men, father and son, so it would hardly be legit, except perhaps in California. Sorry. Nerves. I am not belittling your marriage. Far from it. I think it's wonderful. And wait till the newspapers hear that. Tormented was the word he used. Your spouse, husband. He spoke about you crying out in your sleep. About therapists you refused to talk to. Did they just ramble on then like I'm doing? You know, in the seminary, we had discussions. Endless discussions about marriage, about sex. Well, in the abstract, naturally, since the operating assumption was that none of us in the room had any experience of it. But our concept of sex was not what lay people think of when they hear the word. Now, this is something you should understand. So what is sex? That sacred connection between a man and a woman by which the divine spark creates a new life. Not every time, no, but it must be a roll of the dice every time. You see, everything else is masturbation. Well, some form of masturbation. Whether the hands involved are your own or someone else's. Or perhaps not even your hands. And at the seminary, full of young men in their 20s, many away from home maybe for the first time, and will suffice it to say masturbation led the hit parade of venial sins and confession. Men putting hands or lips or what have you on each other. I mean, no doubt it was wrong, but it wasn't sex as we understood it. And I said we, and yes, there were men like you and me. If the church makes the same rule for priests as for men who desire other men, namely a lifetime of abstinence, well, then it can't be too great a surprise that there's some, overlap. You think you're angry. I'm like a bobcat who stepped in a trap 50 years ago and gave up waiting for a fucking savior. At this point, anyone who tried would be fucking torn to pieces. You think you're tormented. Well, you didn't seem so fucking tormented those 2 years we had together. If you hadn't gone away to college, what would have happened? You ever thought about that? Have you? I mean, yeah, you said I was the reason you were leaving town, but the way you said it. Like you loved me. Almost. Ah, you look like you can't decide if you want to laugh or spit. Well, either way, I won't claim there weren't other opportunities later for disgrace or disgust. But those 2 years we had were it for me. My entire experience of loving and being loved. And don't worry, I won't say that to the Archbishop or the Evening News. That's private. Nobody can take that away from me. Not even you. See, you blame me for losing your faith, you said in your letter. Well, let me tell you, that makes you the lucky one. I wish I could lose mine. Faith is not the belief in God. Everybody has that, even if they call the great thing they believe in by a different name. You know, science or nature or karma, chaos. Faith, for a priest like me, given my education, my history, my troubles, faith is the firm, unshakable belief that I'm bad. Not the worst, but doomed. I don't know what you want, if not money, which you may even get, but not from me. You can't throw me in jail thanks to that pesky statute of limitations. I'll have to laugh. In that same letter you wrote, the statue of limitations, like the Statue of Liberty's evil twin, not waving you in, but slamming the door. I'll be taken care of. I'm protected. You've done all the damage you can do to me. I mean, it's not how I imagined my golden years, but what the hell, I'm not eating dog food. So, what, do you want an apology? Well, you'll get that from the diocese if you haven't already. None will be forthcoming from me. What I can give you, and it will have to do, is this. You can hurt me. And you have. But I won't reciprocate. Only we two know which one of us was the aggressor, and I will take that to my grave. Not for the sake of your torment, if it's even real, when here you are married to a man and manifestly untormented about it. Maybe I'm the one who should demand an apology. You remember why you came to me that very first time? You thought you had a vocation, or so your mother had you believing. I looked at you across my desk and I saw me. And I thought, Lord, I couldn't save myself, but let me save this boy. So I told you no. You were too young, too stubborn, and sturdy, and scared of people. You were cut out for a working man's life, and no shame in that. And you started to cry. Remember? You wanted it so badly. It seemed like an escape from yourself. Of course, I knew all about that. You cried the way only boys can cry. A way denied to grown men. And you leaned against me. And you were beautiful. Do you remember being beautiful? It goes away so fast. I told you I would talk to your mother, and I told her that I would try to help you. So help me God, that's what I thought I was doing that day and all the times after. I hope that's honest enough. I could have said fine and made a call or two and had you enrolled at St. Brendan's, the high school seminary. And my guess is that you'd have stuck with it too. And if you had, you'd be the one looking across this desk at me and seeing yourself. If you think about it, really, I did you a good turn.